post this to YouTube for the public later on and on the website. So that's why we record it. Oh, there we go. The screen's pretty blank now, but
Yeah.
people can work. There we go. We can work through that. Okay. Well, why don't we get to the agenda? Just to recap a little bit, over the last couple of meetings, we've heard from a lot of folks about programs around the region, whether it be Massachusetts, whether it be New York, Maine, Connecticut, etc. So Laura has put together some strategies that she's distributed. And I don't know, Laura, you want to lead the discussion on, I don't know if we want to start with one particular one, maybe the tax credit one and go through that, or if you just want to go through the memo for
Sure. I
full
can share my screen because folks outside of the commission would not have seen this yet. And this will be part of the meeting documents that'll be posted. So you'll be able to read through this at your own speed once you're ready. So based on the conversations that we've had over the past few weeks and in combination with the work that I do with the Northeast Area Business Innovation Center, which for those folks that aren't aware, is a federally funded regional program. We receive funds from USDA and we grant them back out to dairy businesses, farms, and processors primarily for purposes of modernization and innovation in their business. So we've made around 500 awards. We've received over 1,600 applications. So we have a really good data set actually of what is needed in Vermont, which is what I used to build out the potential request that's in this document that you see. So just to run through how it's structured, started with farm-focused strategies, provided a background around what's going on farms and why they're important, the types of investments that are needed, such as reducing the cost of production, decreasing labor, improving milk quality, increasing income. Also recognizing that deferred maintenance and an overall lack of modernization puts Vermont farms both at a competitive risk, but also risk of succession, which we see actually quite a lot in applications, that the next generation isn't interested in coming on board until some modernization happens. So as a result of testimony to the Milk Commission, there's a couple of proposed strategies. One is, and I'll zoom this in just a little bit, realizing it's a little small, a 20% reimbursable tax credit. So this is based off the New York program, which encourages dairy farm investments because those farmers are able to have some certainty that a portion of the project costs would either come from a reduced tax payment to the state or be reimbursed through a direct payment from the state. So we heard from New York that this program brings a lot of strength because it requires business investment in very specific ways, which then drives purchases at other in-state businesses, supporting employment both on the farm and beyond the farm gate, and solving for those farm modernization needs. So it really generates a lot of revolving income at the state level while supporting the farm to be able to complete projects they may not otherwise be able to. So then I developed a number of examples. So the first one, if a quarter of dairy farms, so again, we have about 415 right now. So if a quarter of them completed projects with an average cost of $100,000, the reimbursement from the state would be just over 2 million, but the total invested by farmers would be over 10 million. And then the second example just boosts that average project cost up. If a quarter of dairy farms completed projects with an average cost of $500,000, the total cost of the state would be 10.3 million, while the total invested by farmers would be nearly 52 million. So you can see the leveraging impact of a program like this The likely scenario in a given year is that not every farm will make an eligible investment for this program. So that's where I took a quarter of farms. This is really based on the applications that we've received to the Dairy Innovation Center because we've been providing these grants since 2021, 22. So we have about 4 years of data so we can see how many Vermont farms have actually requested money every year over time. So 45% of Vermont dairy farms have submitted applications to one program or another that's farm focused with a total request of 10.6 million. And then you can see the average request was 56,000 with a range of 5,700 up to almost 400,000. The caveat to the DBIC program is that we can't fund construction because USDA doesn't allow us to. So the funds are typically purchasing equipment or milking systems, as an example. And our grants are capped at $100,000. So people are scaling their projects to what the grant cap is. So would there be bigger projects if the reimbursement rate was capped potentially? I think we heard when we were having that conversation some pluses and drawbacks about having a capped reimbursement rate from the state's perspective and also from the farmer's perspective. So just know that like this information is coming with some boundaries around it, but again, it's like the best data set that we have to understand what farmers may apply for. There are some significant projects that need to happen, as I understand it, from processor perspectives and also labor efficiency perspectives. One of the major ones being conversions of tie stalls to free stalls, which of course, those are very large projects, even for small farms. So then I wanted to know how much Vermont tax was actually paid by dairy farmers, because that feels like an important part of the conversation as we approach this, to understand if it will be reduced income to the state or increased payout. So where the balance is between income versus payment. So the tax department ran a query of all tax returns that are filed where there's a Schedule F that includes the NAICS code 112120, which is dairy, cattle, and milk production. And over the 3-year period or 4-year period where they provided data, it was an average of $727,000 a year. So not a significant amount of money collected from personal tax returns between 2022 and 2024. So this is a 3-year period. For those that filed corporate tax return with the same NAICS code, it was an average of $72,000 a year. So added all together, it's approximately $800,000 a year of income coming into the state that could be reimbursed to the farmer. But even if we look at the smaller numbers of the program, the state would be paying out roughly $1 million+ a year, which is not a lot of money if we're thinking about a quarter of dairy farms with a project cost of $100,000. If we take the taxes that wouldn't be paid in plus the payments out from the state. So that's kind of one of the options.
Yeah, why don't we stop there, Laura? And
Okay.
if any commission members have questions on the first one before we go to the loan fund.
Laura, what do the New York numbers look like? If we pull those in, I know there are a lot more dairy farms, but just as far as, if you compare to the numbers you've carved out here.
Let me pull up real quick the notes from that meeting. And I'm pretty sure that they said, yeah, they don't cap it, which was, I believe, a change that they said was a positive to get more people to utilize the program.
Was it based on their federal tax returns as a credit, or was it Was it more a an investment reimbursements?
Reimbursement, if you didn't need it on your tax return. write a check.
So if you, simple terms, if you purchased $100,000 piece of equipment, the return was what? Is it 20,000? You get a check, you get a 20% check from that, but you're putting in 8, right? So.
Okay, so in New York, sorry, we are finding the right files here. Okay, I have to go into their presentation because it's not coming up for me, but we can get that information. I feel like they said,
Couple numbers I wrote down,
great, thanks, Harold.
2023. They had 215 million back to farmers. $1 billion investment.
Their program's been going, what, 3-4 years?
Mhm.
But it would work the same way in Vermont, that if you wanted the 100,000 investment, it wouldn't, we would write a check. It wouldn't necessarily be against your federal tax.
It wouldn't be against
Liability.
federal tax
Or
liability,
state.
it'd be against state. And I think that's where the distinction is important, because if farmers are using accounting to decrease their taxable burden right now by making purchases at the end of the year, there could be a situation in which that changed because they knew that there was going to be a tax credit coming. So the state could take in more income, right, but it would be paid back out as a reimbursement. So I think as taxes stand right now, most businesses would get a very small credit, and then the balance of that would come as a payment from the state. So if you were expecting, say you bought $100,000 piece of equipment, if you purchased, or if you had your tax that you owed, which is roughly like $2,000 to $4,000 a farm, you would take that $4,000 off and you'd get a check for $16,000.
If you owed the state nothing in taxes, you'd get the whole 20%. But it's capped, and New York's not, right?
Yeah, let's have a little discussion about the cap. Whether should we have a cap, or what's an appropriate number for the cap? Oh, things are pretty expensive right now, so.
Yeah, I would just, appreciate, all the table Laura set up. I would just say it's pretty conservative, numbers on the investments that we would look at on our farm, which is pretty average size. Even a, new tractor, combine, chopper, choppers, $600,000-$700,000. Tractors. If you buy new or extravagant, so it's just think scale, but could be possible. It's a lot higher than that. Most of the infrastructure that's probably more needed on the farm would be in the milking equipment, technology. It's a lot of the milking parlors and systems in the state were put in the 90s and early 2000s. And they all have a shelf life, and with technology, robotics or activity monitors or chemically chillers, or stores. Stainless steel is pretty pricey. It's just
Does New York have a list of like eligibility, like what would be eligible for purchases?
They do.
Like if someone wanted to buy a milk truck. Oh,
It is for qualified property, which is not actual property. So barns, tractors, grain storage facilities, harvesting equipment, et cetera. The only thing that's not allowed is land, on-road vehicles, and farm worker housing.
So probably, I think, we're gonna go along here. We're probably gonna have to look at running some more scenarios with higher caps along the way. And so the question will be, how much is it gonna cost the state eventually? How much is it gonna, if it does go forward? So I think maybe a next step for us would be to run some bigger models. Maybe, I don't know if that's possible, Laura. Or
I do have an Excel document that I put together that you just put the numbers in and it automatically changes what it costs. So that's easy to do. It's something that I could share out, and I have it for farms and processors.
I would imagine there would have to be some sort of cap. They probably want to just do. I don't know. Be discussion for policy. Just don't know how many are going to participate in it.
Or
Yeah,
I didn't hear what you said.
I was just saying, we probably have to have some sort of cap, I would imagine, to get it off the ground.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we gotta walk before we can run here. But with all the proposals we've seen, we maybe could come up with 2 or 3 things. Be a broader reach across the industry. And, they're pretty well laid out around us. We don't have to meadow, we'll just have to adapt. And obviously funding, but most of the programs are gonna generate economic activity also. So I think we gotta look at both sides as we try and go forward.
DBIC, Laura, do you get a lot of any chance that the cap could be raised or that it might be a broader range of things we could invest in?
so the farm grants used to be 75,000. And then we recognized that we needed to increase that to 100,000. $100,000 is a good amount of money for most. You can do a lot with 100,000. If you want to do a fairly large conversion, like if you're going to take your parlor out or put robots in, you're going to need more money than that. But 100,000 will pay for a feed robot. It'll pay for callers, pay for, in some cases, milking parlor upgrades. It's all about the scale. Could we increase our cap to 250? I think so. And that's the program that New York modeled after ours. Their cap is 250. And their farms are doing significant levels of investment in milk handling and storage and milking facilities. So I think this is how you want to benefit different scales as part of that conversation, and what those different types of farms may need.
Go to the board, Alan, question?
Yeah, question/comment. I'm very grateful for all the information that was put together, both what Laura's got and Farm Credit East's information. On the cap, that as the program's designed, that if there's not already the plan to revisit it, there's a very clear statement that when a cap is set, that you revisit that again prior to the renewal period. If this is something that has to be renewed on an annual basis, is that, we're really proactive on revisiting it early in that lead up. And then just to what Laura just added about New York's program and the 250,000, I think that is the kind of demonstration of what we're trying to spur here, is significant investment that's appropriate based on each farm's needs and efforts. and the 100,000 feels attainable, the 250,000 seems impactful. So that's my opinion on it.
Well, I think Paul, you had a question?
Yes, I did have a, so New York has a $250,000 cap.
That's that's a different program under their modernization program, right? That's not,
Okay, right,
that's not the tax credit one.
right. The
Tax
tax,
credit one is, they do have a cap, right?
Don't know that they do.
so they don't have, they have a 250 on the modernization, but they don't have one
Yeah.
for their
That's
tax.
Yeah, that's a granting program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
New York does not have a cap on the refundable amount.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions about this first scenario or the first proposal? If not, we can go to the revolving loan fund one that we heard about last time, and it's modeled after Maine. So
Right, so a 1% interest revolving loan fund. So Maine Stereo Improvement Fund is a low interest state managed pool of money that has received one singular investment to get the program started. The funds are managed by not the state of Maine, by a quasi-governmental organization called FAME, with project approval and review happening at the department, but then underwriting and fund management through that external lender. Maine's program had the initial infusion of about $4 million. They funded about 24 projects, and the total project costs are covered by the loan vary by the amount requested. So that allows for higher levels of financial support for smaller farms. So you can get a higher percentage of the covered project in your loan versus a larger farm, which would get a reduced coverage for the project. So these funds are often paired with, and we've seen them through the Dairy Innovation Program as a match source, paired with traditional finance, state or federal grants, or owner equity. These grants or these loans they're not really big, but they are approachable and they have flexible terms. So if something happens in the market or a farmer has an emergency and can't pay their principal back for a number of months, they can defer that. So it's designed to work with the farmer and be a flexible finance option. In Vermont, we could use a similar process where the agency would be responsible for project approval and loan management could happen through an external partner such as VITA. We've had some similar types of arrangements before. The most recent one was the transition to organic grant program that helped support some of those transition costs for farms. That was back in the 2010s. It was before I got here. Was wrapping up when I got here. So this program, of course, would be totally dependent on the amount of money put into it for how many farms it could support and how much income it could generate. Is 1% the right interest rate? I think there's a lot of questions here that could be up for debate. For thinking about what the current traditional interest rate is, what is an approachable interest rate from the borrower's perspective, and how much revenue that the fund should generate in order to extend the livelihood and not need new injections of capital.
Thanks, Laura. So I've thought about this one quite a bit, and I wonder if we want to talk to Vita back about this. I'm not sure we need to stand up another program, but maybe work with them to figure out if there's a, you know, a way to work together, whether it's buying down rates for them or, you know, use the infrastructure we already have. Instead, you know, I don't think we want to send farmers to this whatever we're called program, the DIF program in Vermont, and also back. It seems like there are opportunities to maybe collaborate, and again, maybe you buy down a rate, maybe you know, stand up a similar program. I don't know what the answer is, but if we've got the expertise of the infrastructure, we should probably look at that. And they have a statewide, excuse me, you know, reach.
Yeah, I've had some conversations with the leadership of VITA, and I think, I don't know, Ellen, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think in the past, haven't we had buy down programs, we buy down the interest rate? Is that what, would that be something we could look at this program?
Hi, obviously this is over my pay grade, but yes, I believe so. And that would really simplify the process if they didn't have to first go through one entity and then turn to the next. As far as the amount of information they have to submit and all that stuff. So it might make a lot of sense to really try to collaborate for sure.
Thanks for listening in and keeping your eye on it, Alan. We appreciate this.
I appreciate being here. It's very interesting. Thank you.
This program I found intriguing because the original pool of money came from the casino, correct? And we don't have a casino in Vermont, but we do have ski areas. What if there was,
Scratch tickets.
well, scratch ticket, doesn't it go to education? But if there was a tax on every ticket that was sold, that would create a pool of money to start with, and it would take away the pressure from the legislature or pool of money that's already in the state.
I think what we need to find is what's the appropriate dollar figure if we have a 1%, what this 1%, if we did a buy down program, what million is it 5 million? How many could we do? So there's probably some data we could probably pull from that. But if we did, I see your point, if we had a reliable funding source that could keep it going, so you didn't have to go back every year for the appropriation part of it. Something, but I think we probably need to figure out what the appropriate number is on the program recommended. Any other questions online? John, in the room?
Or what typically were the terms? Because if it's like a 1%, but it's, you know, a 20-year type payback, it's given the average age of Vermont dairy farmers.
That is a great question.
Harold Fund would know.
We had, Harold can probably find it faster than I can. Clicking through here.
It's going to AI.
No, this is my spreadsheet.
Okay, so it's
1%.
250K, 1% fixed interest.
Never hearing it. I was looking later. I was like,
I don't think she said the terms.
But it was like 23 projects over 10 years or something.
No defaults, there've been no defaults.
It was a pretty, not a lot of projects per year because didn't she say that it took about 6 months to approve? Which was slow, which was one of the real drawbacks of it.
Which I think speaks to Ellen's point about making it straightforward so that it is not going through multiple entities before it gets approved. Maine did say the available funds right now are 2 million. When the program started, there was a $250,000 cap, and they're thinking about asking that to be changed, given that that doesn't pay for as much now as it did when it originally started.
Okay, so I think some follow-ups on that is maybe some more data, like what is the appropriate number, and then we can have some. I can visit with Vita and figure out, you know, is it possible, first of all, to do something for third party? Because I don't think, judging on what Maine has done, setting up a standalone program take a long time, and it doesn't seem like it's very efficient. There's something out there that maybe they could adapt a program to Vita, work with them. So we can have some follow-up conversations.
Ellen's got her hand raised.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to speak to your question on the term. So in general, from our perspective, when we're doing loans, the term is based on the asset they're buying or the project we're financing. So if this is basically equipment, it would be 10 years or less, wouldn't you think? It's not like it's a long-term real estate loan.
Plus the success of the program means money comes back in, right? And so it can-
To be regurgitated back out. So yes, thank you.
Mary White from the Farm Bureau has a question. Is anyone connected with the Center for Ag Economy? I am not, but I'm familiar with that program. That program is efficient, pretty fast. It's essentially emergency loans. It's a farm fire or something. It's again, another revolving fund that we started many years ago. Heat screens burned. It's a fundraiser and they keep taking the money out, but that's another, one, certainly have a conversation. Yes, yeah.
The lady from Maine, one thing she said was on scale of today's infrastructure, these loans were not enough to cover, but a lot of times they were part of a bigger project. She said they were doing a lot of robots and, equipment upgrades, and sometimes this was enough to get the loan, across the fence and make it viable. So you just have to help the bigger funding from another source.
And that has a lot fewer farms also. And so if you, a percentage of farms that would want to participate in the program in Vermont, be a much bigger pool.
Yeah. Scale is a lot different.
They also like first two. This one's you have here. This one as part of a match. That's good.
Okay, so got two follow-ups on this one. You want to go on to the processor one now?
Sure. So on the processor side, again, just starting with some background, there's 122 active processors in the state and another 10 that are in the development pipeline. So they're in various stages of getting a license. They could be very early stage to just about to open. So processing is what I would say is like very healthy in this state, generally given the diversity of processors. So when I say healthy, like we have a lot of diversity of scales, we have a lot of products. Some states only have a few major processing plants and very few product types. So from the perspective of thinking about what our milk is going into and the scale at which it's happening, there's a lot of diversity there, which always brings strength into a system. So from the agency's perspective on the regulatory side, I just want to walk through this chart just to make sure that folks understand. So on the left-hand side is processor type, and across the top is how much they produce, their production volume on a production day. So if you think about the less than 500 pounds, this is a very small processor, micro scale in terms of like thinking about anything on the national scene. These are really oftentimes the ones that you see at your local co-op, your local grocery store, at the farmer's market. And some of these are standouts on the national scene. So the largest side, the 500,000 pounds plus, those are all the ones that you would think of as being the really large players. So a farmstead operation, they use only the milk that they produce from their own animals. Some farmsteads need additional milk, so they milk their own animals and they bring in milk from another farm. Some farmsteads don't use all the milk that they produce, so they use what they can and they sell the excess to a co-op. Some processors buy milk from a local farm or processor. Some processors, all of the milk comes from a cooperative of farmers. Some processors direct contract through independent relationships with farms. And other processors purchase products for further processing. So that would be people that are buying ingredients or inputs and then making a finished product with it. And then startups at the bottom all are in the very small scale. So you can see that of that, nearly 88% of processors, excluding startups, are at the two smallest levels of processing volume. Despite this, the vast majority of milk is processed in one of the larger scaled operations, just by virtue of how much greater the volume is, the throughput on a production day, and that those larger plants typically run, if not every day, almost every day, and oftentimes for multiple shifts a day. So it just thinking about the volume and the scale that's moving through different plants, I think is really important to keep in mind. So over the past 7 years at the agency here, we've had a number of studies done, and then there's been other studies that have shown that processing is a real vulnerability. I think we've seen that play out over the past year, and there is a need for significant investment in dairy processing to keep those facilities operational. Many of the large dairy plants here have been around for a long time, and they need investment to modernize, make things more efficient, put new product lines in, increase their employee safety, make new products or new packaging sizes. And they also need to meet new regulatory demands, particularly around wastewater. So these are high cost projects, regardless of scale. So one of the things I think it's also important to keep in mind is that given processing dynamics in this state, when a larger processor shuts down, that volume is not absorbed by other plants in the state. That milk is moving out of state for processing, which creates additional supply chain ripple effects, sort of both upstream and downstream. So dairy processing really, in many ways, is the key pin in supporting farm viability in this state. So I just came up with a couple of projects here based on the conversations that we've been having with processors over the past few months. So the first one is a wastewater improvement cost share program. These projects are very expensive, $5 million plus, if not more, for pretreatment or other types of processing projects. This is not admittedly my area of expertise, wastewater management. So there are a number of programs that exist at the state level and at the federal level where there could be public-private partnership. So you don't see a lot of detail here because I myself am still learning about what these programs can do. So anybody who has input or feedback or wastewater expertise, I'd love to hear from you.
The agency has been talking with the Agency of Natural Resources, which is the agency this is their space. So we're looking, if we want to attract new processors, or if we want the current processors to grow or remain viable, this is an issue that we need to focus on, because, and it extends well beyond dairy processing as well. So if they have a good system in a town or municipality that can handle more, that can also lead to more other development within that community. So for example, housing. So it's all connected. So we're looking at places that could be viable right now, that could handle extra capacity if someone wanted to there, or we're looking at the areas that definitely need improvement. And there are considerable number of communities that need improvement on the wastewater side. So one option is doing some pre-treatment right on site before it goes into the system. So we're in conversations with ANR about how to address this particular issue, because I think it's a key part of the processing issue.
And so, Laura, are there looming or coming deadlines, sort of like the 3-acre rule on this, that we can see like, oh, in 2032, you know, all these processes are gonna have to come up to a certain bar, and that's a deadline that's real?
That's a great question that I don't know.
Yeah, I don't, I think there are, you know, they have certain permits and there's a certain time limit on those permits and they come up for review. And I don't know the length of some of those permits, but it's quite an involved process of making sure you've got whatever system you have in place and how you're going to deal with it. So that's the kind of discussions we are having with ANR of sometimes the length of those permits, what the capacity is. Does something have to be done on site at the facility, or does the upgrade need to be done at maybe the municipal plant as well? So, yeah, but it's a significant issue that needs to, I think we need to focus on it for growth. Dairy.
But this also attracts breweries as well.
Yeah.
And others, so it's not just a gin. They're a specific challenge.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to lose our focus on dairy, and I know processing is important, but I think most every municipality in the state is a little bit under the water on infrastructure for wastewater. They don't want our project to get lost in that realm. It's all good conversation. I guess you're almost verging into a much larger problem than, you know, outside of the dairy industry realm. We have our own wastewater, environmental hoops to jump through, and it costs us a lot of money. Anyway, it's just my thought process.
Okay, Laura, do you want to go on to the next one?
So the next option or possibility is similar to a farm modernization program. Again, this mirrors what the Dairy Innovation Center has done, which is a processor modernization program. So as I was saying before, there's a really huge diversity of processors within the state who are making almost every kind of dairy product that you can imagine. And so thinking about this as a multi-pronged approach to support processors at all of the different scales for all of their different product lines feels important, similar to farms, you know, all scales, all production methods. So over the past 5 years, the Dairy Innovation Center has received 47 applications from Vermont processors. Again, our grants cannot pay for construction. But they can pay for new equipment, capacity, worker safety, efficiencies, packaging and product lines. The total amount requested through these programs was just over $9 million, with a maximum project ask of 1.4 million and a minimum of 10,000. The average request was just under $200,000. So we did have one cycle of grants whose data I removed because USDA for one period allowed us to fund grants greater than $500,000. Normally our cap is $350,000. So that's where you see the range come in. So the maximum project ask and the minimum included the match that somebody was asking for. So the total project costs in a normal round for us was within that range. We did fund a few projects in the state with awards greater than $500,000. So, you know, of those, that was a special round that we can't always do. So I didn't include that data because it definitely skewed the numbers. So these projects are are really successful at supporting processing plants at getting equipment that they need, and that's primarily what people do. Oftentimes, they also are doing new food safety plans or audits that are required to get to new markets. So this type of program could be a revolving loan, it could be a reimbursable tax credit, there could be a grant round. Again, I think this particular approach has a lot of opportunity behind it. And I don't have any numbers from tax because of the way that processors file taxes. You can't tease out in almost every case what is business revenue and tax versus the individual, or if it's corporate tax, which portion of the corporation's taxes are from the Vermont plant, in a way that provides for anonymity. So tax can't release anything that would be identifiable. So unfortunately, no tax data to back up this to show how much is paid or could be reimbursed.
Thanks. So of the 47 applications that were received on the processing side, how many were funded? And same question for the modernization. We could probably back into.
Yep, let me pull that data up right now.
188. That's a total of 10.6.
One moment here.
And I know it's over a period of 4 years.
Right, over 4 years. Okay, so if we go to awarded, just sorting my table here. And just processor grants. Looks like Nicole has a question if you want to go to that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nicole. Okay, still on you.
Oh, there we go. I got it. I have a question. So this doesn't seem super new. We're just reiterating, the grants we're already having. And like not every farmer's interested in processor grants. I'm a small processor myself, but I know that the amount of money that they offer here wouldn't even do much of anything on the dairy. I see both sides. I live both sides. I'm just wondering.
I think this is a little bit different because this would be a solely a Vermont-based program. Because the other dollars are competing against the other, 11 states?
Right.
11 states. So that's,
Right.
you're right, you're right there, but I think that if this was just a Vermont-based program, I think that's the focus.
Okay, so that's where we're. Gotcha.
So we've awarded 18 applications for $3.6 million during that time.
On the processing side.
Yes, and that does include one $1 million grant and one $500,000 grant. So if you take that out, it's roughly $2 million of other awards.
So really, it's only the 2 million. Got a question?
And how
Andy?
many of these are still in business? Because I know quite a few didn't.
They are all still in business.
Okay.
That was kind of my question also. When it's been 4 or 5 years, has there been any impact information in regard to keeping them viable, helping them to create better product or bigger, more sales?
I do have all of that data. It would take me a minute to pull it up. But we do track businesses for at least 3 months after project implementation. And we do see increasing revenues, usually decreased cost of production. And all of the businesses on the processor side that we have awarded are still in business, and many of them have scaled to new markets quite substantially.
I think we have an impact statement for each state, right?
Yes, yeah, I know it's on your website.
Okay. Any more questions on this particular program?
It's like Kevin's got his.
Kevin?
Yeah, thank you. I think I just want to circle back and support what Harold Horrigan said. I think if anything, I hope everything that comes out of these conversations and these discussions are going to be producer focused. I think if we support the producer, there will be organic growth back into the local communities, back into other companies that support dairy, and tax base will grow around that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay. So I think that's what we have planned for outlines, right? So I want to give, and maybe we could give an opportunity for part of this before we go on to next steps about, does anyone wants to move to the public comment part of the agenda? So if anyone wants to make a public comment about this, what you've heard today or anything else, I think now is an appropriate time to do it. And then we can, after that, we can go. I just want to have that input before we go on to next steps. Is why I'm moving the agenda around a little bit. Okay. Well, hearing none, we'll move on to, oh, yeah, Paul, go ahead.
Thanks, Anson. Yeah, so I just want to talk about the cap. I think that it was brought up today, and I think it was Harold who said, and he's right, if we have to have a cap to get going, that's good. But as far as really addressing the issue of increasing the milk supply, will take investments which require taking advantage of technology, which will put us well beyond what the cap should be capable of doing for us. If we want to be able to really take advantage of technology, increase milk production, not having a cap will allow us the capacity to take advantage of the infrastructure that we have in place right now in Vermont as far as our climate and cool weather climates and soils to really increase or get at what we talked about when we all got together about a month ago, which is increasing the milk supply. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Other thoughts? Public? Okay, so why don't we move to next step? So if I heard the room correctly, I think we want to keep going down the reimbursable tax credit. But we need to probably, put something on paper, what we're actually would propose, right? The cap, the non-cap, how much it may cost. Probably got to get some more data. Am I hearing that? Hearing that as consensus that that's one we want to keep pursuing.
Yes.
I think that's one thing that, next time we get together, with proper notice, we could have some language for you to look at, and we could figure out if that's something we want to endorse or adapt or change or whatever, or amend or whatever. So I think I heard that in the room and online, that's one we want to keep pursuing. So if that's okay, we can do that. Everyone okay online with that? Okay. So we'll keep crunching the numbers. And by the way, just before I came here, we actually have a pencil sharpener in the agency. And I had a pencil and I actually sharpened it. So I haven't done that in a while. So
Those old school.
old school ones you put on the wall, which you had in school back in the day. Kind of cool. So we'll sharpen our pencils. and figure out some of these numbers as we work through this. And then the revolving loan fund, I do think there's some interest in that, but we need to probably have some conversations with some of our partners, figure out if that is something that could be managed. And I heard Vita's name mentioned once, and also the Ag Economy Farm Fund as well. So if you're okay with that, we can have some discussions with them offline and then bring that back to you with some more. Well, does that sound reasonable? Okay. That's assignment number 2. And I think I did hear, maybe it's a little bit out of our lane, the wastewater cost share program. Maybe that is something that someone else within state government can do a deeper dive into, and we'll stay focused on the support, but maybe it's not in our lane.
That's my opinion. It's a huge project. The state has been kicking down the road, for lack of a better term. Just back to a low interest loan or funding. I'd like to see that dual purpose, whether, a lot of people don't want another loan, but buying down interest could help, but also have the availability of money. People who want to borrow, need access to money.
Okay, so we'll have some other conversations outside the commission on the cost share program with wastewater. Probably just too large for us, that particular issue. And then the other ones is the processing plant modernization investment program. Where do you think we should head with that? Wasn't clear to me. You need more information, need more numbers, like a Vermont focus program, what it would mean for eligibility, costs, grants.
I appreciate the focus on that. But maybe we start with the 2 items that I think most directly fall under the milk. That's just my take. I'm just thinking about the smaller bites first, and then
So
maybe that's number 3 to look at down the road. I don't know.
How many years innovation center project gonna continue? Would there be more funds, federal funding coming through?
We're funded, we're releasing the funds that we have available that we received earlier this year. We are waiting on our next round of money, which will take us through 2029. So another round, but it's permanently written into the Farm Bill. It's just dependent on annual congressional appropriation.
I would think those fundings would cover that
Right.
aspect.
yeah, it's just,
Processors.
yeah, the only difference would be regional. So those Vermont farmers would compete against the other states. So we have to establish our
Gotcha.
own.
That does include the whole, like Ohio, Pennsylvania.
It's Pennsylvania and Maryland up to Maine. So 11
All in
states.
New York, New Jersey, Maryland. So. Okay, so Harold,
Yeah, I got a question. And all this comes back to funding. Oh. Just brainstorm a little bit on where that may come from, what's palatable. Some innovation. Bob mentioned ski areas. Some of the other states, at least one, use the percentage of real estate transactions. And then some casino. Maine gets a lot of it out of the market. A little bit unique in that respect, I guess.
I'd be curious how many, if you added $1 for every tickets that's sold, already put as a day pass at Killington, $140 now. So, people have the money to. There's so many people that are coming into the state. Time to spend.
I'm not against it, I just, we need to brainstorm on where this.
So that's a suggestion. I think that's something.
That's.
Funding and revenue sources, that's another project. Or it's existing funding, whether it's general funding, whether it's a dedicated fund that takes a percentage of something. There's so many that maybe some of those programs that we could do, we could, again, like we've done here, we probably could have put a menu of things to look at. That's something that you're interested in doing.
It's kind of out of our purview. More cabinet.
Anything we discuss here, though, or anything we come up with for a decision, doesn't have to go through legislature anyway, but
Or we can suggest.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But you're right. So we'll come down to the size and scale. There's not a lot of fun. Changes.
Still a $9 billion budget, so it's not money there.
So Anson, has there been any conversation about the sort of tiered program too? I'm just thinking like so often when we went through the other states, it's the states that can somewhat compensate for the real valleys in the pricing, so works almost like a, between what cost of production and what you're getting for your milk. If there's some way to safeguard some of that, that seems enormously important. But I don't know, right, once again, it's funding, and it could be a huge amount, but.
You're referring to the Massachusetts one, it's probably the.
Mass and Maine. They do it differently.
Yeah.
I think Connecticut also. It's a price per hundredweight.
That's their one time. And they're doing it regardless of milk production volume. We were actually just down in Connecticut last week, had some interesting conversations with farmers there who said that the Connecticut program wanted to be equal for everybody, same rates of payment. Because in Maine, has been starting to be more challenging conversations between farms of different scales, and it's causing some divisions. So Connecticut opted to go with one rate for everybody.
Massachusetts said that should be united. Everyone, they're all the same. 2 cows to 1,000, things like that. Part of it was to move it forward.
Any other thoughts?
So Nikki's got a question, comment.
Sure, Nikki, go ahead.
I was just gonna comment, like you're talking about the dollars per hundredweights. Like my sister and I sat down after we started this conversation and pushed a pencil to it. And like the farms, even at our size, and we're definitely medium size, it's a couple $1 million a year at the scale when you're talking about Massachusetts and Connecticut, what they're talking about hundredweights a year. It's so these big farms in Vermont would be millions of dollars a year. When you just the dollar per like whatever they were per hundredweight, the $4, $6, that's a lot of money.
And I think that's part of the reason why those proposals have not really moved, is just because of the cost, the overall cost.
Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Do we need to come about this a different way, and do we need to back ourselves into it? And going back to, I heard a comment about, do you take $1 per ski ticket? Do we figure out what the pot is and then figure out how we disperse, or do we come up with a list of ideas of how we get money into a fund to fund the program and then figure out how to allocate those dollars. I think there's a lot of conversation around the lack of tax base in the state, the worry about the budget within the legislature. Then you get down on the Agency of Ag. I was able to get to that meeting a couple weeks ago in Waterbury, $13 million budget for the Agency of Ag and Food and Market. So do we need to really take part of these discussions and come up with where do we tap in and where are we going to, get this money? And I think the tourism dollars is potentially a good lever that we need to investigate and figure out how. And again, I'm not a legislator, I'm not a person in politics or government, but how do we get to the table and ask for that?
Yeah, I think, in the end, it will come down to, they're going to want to know what the numbers are. What is the cost of the program? Where those dollars will be distributed? How those dollars are monitored? And what is the return on the investment? It's usually the conversation. But we've started that process, and I think maybe we get some more data on these two programs will lead us to some discussions of how much the programs are going to cost. Oh, right, we'll get that data. And then someone's going to ask, where's that money going to come? Could be the existing programs that are out there, revenue sources that could be allocated, or could be new ones that could be created. New ones that are created are, challenging, but those conversations, I think, will work their way through the policy process, both through administration, but also through the legislature. The legislature, in the end, is the one that decides that appropriates the money.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments. Thank you, Anson. We didn't have a casino to fund the program initially. We don't have the tax base, so I think we should be very broad and not have everything on the table as a source to tap into. If it means a bucket ski ticket, so be it. A downstate New Yorker or a person from Connecticut does not see that money at the end of the day, a ski weekend in Vermont. And again, I'm zeroing in on a ski ticket, but I think we all know what I'm kind of inferring to in terms of that taxable tax base that's driving into our state daily to enjoy what Vermont is. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Along these lines, I'm trying to think of programs that have a dedicated revenue source that there's really education and it's sort of sold. And so you could see, like Rob's idea of a ski ticket. If everybody said, "Oh, that's $1 for cows," it could almost become a popular revenue, even though taxes aren't popular. But if it's so clearly dedicated and there's results, as in we keep our dairy farms, there might be something to that. The problem, we could talk a lot about tax policy, but when you look at education, it's like, it's not just property tax, it's everywhere. It's pulling in and the results aren't that good. So people aren't so happy with that. Whereas if you had a smaller tax that had clear.
Well, do people really care that dairy farms are going out of business? Will people care if cows leave Vermont? Whatever happened to the Vermont label, produced in Vermont? I don't see that being utilized at all. With more processing being done out of the state, I think that is just a shame. It just what's going to happen to Ben and Jerry's? Is that going to be the end? Will there no longer be a place for tourists to go in Waterbury? What is the future? Do people really care? So I think that in educating legislators as well as the general public about the status of dairy farming today in Vermont, people really ought to understand that we're at a critical moment. In thinking about what I might contribute to this, but I felt really lost because having run a farm for 43 years, I really don't know the number of things that the government or Agency of Agriculture, prior to that Department of Ag, had done in providing programs to make farming better for me or to help me. And I can think of only one time, and that was when organic dairying was really struggling, and I got a substantial check. And that's one of the few times that I felt like I really received something to keep myself going. Other than that, current use to help our income sensitivity, those are the type of things that are really helping me financially. But I think having a historical understanding of what has happened in the past and why processors are leaving the state, why businesses have closed down, why money talks and businesses leave or co-ops close, and it's a big picture here. So it's just trying to give a good understanding of what we're dealing with. It's some great value.
Run a business for 43 years, so your input is really important. So you got a perspective that's really important to this commission. It's also important to essentially tell your story of how you managed to, milk cows.
I've managed to stay in business because I've stayed small. Studied business in college, and it was a small handful of Schumacher, and that's what I follow all the time. The whole idea of you've got to get bigger or get out is ridiculous to me, and it's what's killed the dairy industry, as far as I'm concerned.
Look at these programs. We also benefit all scales. So.
Right, right.
So if you
And
wanted-
there was the mention about the division, if in these other states, if the big farms are not receiving any support, and yet the small farms are. The same thing has happened here. I mean, organic farmers are scrutinized by conventional farmers because they're getting a better price for their milk. It's a different type of marketing. So, it just, there's already a division. And I think, I remember hearing one of the lobbyists in the state say, well, there's a place for both. There's a way that both can survive. And I haven't seen how that happens.
I think organic and conventional have been together for over 30 years, and I think it was the conventional industry that gave the organic a place to market their milk. Because I remember both. I don't think there's any large farms in Vermont. I think the large is a whole different scale than we have. There's entities with 100,000 cows out there. Several around the country, out in the west. To me, those are large farms. I don't know of any farms in Vermont that aren't family farms. I have some larger families working together that scale, they still got to get their kids to college. They still got to buy a house, a truck, put food on the table. So their scale is different. We get here large against small here. We should stay home. I just don't think we're going to go anywhere. I think we got to work together. When organic milk came out, we talked about it at our farm, and my father said he worked that way for the first half of his life, and he didn't want to go back to it. So we'd always been conventional. I mean, that's honest. That's what he said. So we've stayed conventional. I envy the price you guys are getting for your milk. I know it's a lot.
Probably would
it's
be
a lot
envious of what I pay for grain either.
No,
So.
it's a whole different business. I'm not dissing you. Say it's totally different. It's two different businesses, models, scales, and marketing. I think we got to work together. Personally,
I kind of look at it this way, there's only 415 of them left. So we gotta be, whatever we do, we gotta work all this stuff out and just gotta make sure that we include as many. And I think these programs, if we develop them further, will be will benefit all. And, you know, and of course, everyone's trapped in a federal system. That's, you know, Vermont was in charge of it. We might be a little different, but we are in a federal system, and that's just, we don't control that, right? I don't.
It's a global commodity,
Yeah.
not price, it's federally priced, but it's global.
Yes. I'll struggle with that, struggle with it for many, many years of how do we fit into that? And, but we can control some things, and if we can control the controllables, maybe we can make some progress here, so, good, well, appreciate the comments. I know this is not easy stuff, but everyone at the table is invested, everyone online is invested on getting to a better place. And we will get there. But it's gonna take some work, it's gonna take some probably difficult decisions by a lot of people, and a lot of people not in this room. So, so next steps, Laura, if we can recap, what do you think what you're gonna do, right?
Great, keep exploring the reimbursable tax credit, put some language together to review for the next meeting, along with running some more scenarios. In conversations with VITA and CAE about a revolving loan fund, and if that's both a loan program or an interest buy down or one or the other. We're tabling wastewater, but we'll stay in communication with partners to ensure this is addressed by subject matter experts. Processing plant investment, we are tabling essentially to prioritize the farm-based conversations. We'll think through where funds could come from, possibly a conversation on our side with tourism about possible revenue sources. And that we all need to work together, bring all of our perspectives and knowledge to the table to start to problem solve. So I think we've got some homework on our end, and then we can get another meeting scheduled in a month or so.
Send out a.
I was gonna put Wendy on the spot a little bit, see if she had anything to add to this conversation, or if anything forthcoming from SDA or FSA. Picture this fall.
Well, we're implementing the passage of the bill that passed last year. So that had enhancements for DMC. Went up to 6 million pounds. It was a change. You could change your production, update your production numbers. That includes some newer farms. So that was a good thing there. An increase to base acres or PLC. I mean, this is all nerdy stuff, right? There were enhancements to some standing disaster programs, recognizing these programs are needed all over the country. Here it was floods, the Southwest, it was drought, wildfire, all this, and we got wildfires happening in Oregon right now. So that all of this stuff is happening a lot. So there were enhancements to a lot of those disaster programs that made them a little better, met the needs of the farmers a little better. We're actually getting training on all of this, national training next month, because after the bill gets approved, which was last July, that's got to come through the rulemaking process. Then that dribbles down to us in terms of process and procedure. We're already implementing some of these things, SDRP, the specialty crop thing, already implementing. Those deadlines are coming up next month as well. So there's a lot of money that got put out there in disaster, which is probably, if we don't get another flood, hopefully we don't, it'll be a one-trick pony. So for what happened in 23 and 24, last time I looked, it's about $54 million from FSA that went out to Vermont farms of all kinds. I mean, John, I came in front of your committee, and of course that was a while ago. It was a lot less, and there's been a lot since then. This year, DMC did pay out that one time. I don't expect it's going to pay out again, and that was just under $2 million. The farmer bridge, which was really the price support for the tariff issue, if you want to think of it that way. I think we have 10 million that got produced on that. And the other supplemental disaster, we're not done with those programs. That'll amp up that 54 million. So there's a lot of enhancements to programs that way. Nothing that's really changed so much as increase what's already there. Make it easier, make it faster, make it more palatable so that it meets the needs of the farmers a little better. The only thing I can say that I really want to find out more about, I'm just waiting to hear, is there's a program through FSA, but not directly with our offices, but this is through FSA and the administrator's office. That there's some enhancements for processors. This is meat processors, so beef, poultry, and beef. That if you're a small or medium-sized processor, which would be everybody in Vermont, to increase capacity. And those applications will be, I don't know if they've been sent yet, but they will be sent to those who are already certified processors. So those who are already, licensed. I want to find out more about that. When I hear more about that, I'll be letting Jensen know, because I think this is crucial for us. The DFA news with the upcoming plant, being slowed down or not functioning for a while. It is big news, but almost even bigger than that is the closure of the JBS plant in Pennsylvania, where a lot of our larger farms would send their cull cows. And if they want to continue to send those cows to JBS, it's Michigan or Tennessee, is what I understand. And it's going to be very hard. So how can we increase slaughtering capacity in the Northeast is really, it's been a question for a long time, but it's probably become more crucial now. And so I think that's, unfortunately, I think the way I see it with agriculture, we've got to run this thing on all cylinders, all burners, all the time to solve a multitude of problems. I'm limited by what we can do based on what Congress tells us, basically, and USDA as they set their procedures. But I will have to say that without the disaster money coming into the pockets of the farmers in the last year, I think this would have been a difficult spring. And what we've heard from a lot of the producers that we work with, not everybody's an FSA customer, I realize that. But for those who were, they were really happy about it, and they were telling our staff that. So that's the update that I have at this point. We do have a program. If somebody wants to ship their own milk, it's a loan program with a good interest rate called Farm Storage Facility Loan. So if you want to buy a truck and a trailer, refrigerated trailer, you can do that, and we can fund it. So on our loan side and our program side, that's a collaborative program. That's about the only thing I can think of that would be specific to that. I also think beef on dairy has been a boost for a while. Thank God for that. That's been really helpful for a lot of dairy producers. And the state funded, you guys funded a study for a little while, and now it's an ARS grant, that project in Chester. I went down to that. That's kind of interesting. Now the problem is, if we were able to produce a real beef market, it's a high quality product, really good looking animals. So if we were able to produce the animals, again, where do we process them? How can we make a market in the Northeast for that product? Those are big obstacles to surmount if we can get there.
Well, great. Well, why don't we wrap up? Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your input. I will do it again. I'll let you know in the next meeting, but it'll be months to 6 weeks out. So appreciate all your help.
Thanks, Anson.
Bye.
Thanks for having the meetings.
Yeah.
Bye.